Good morning, everyone. We are back with our chemistry lesson, and today we are looking at chemical reactions. We start by definition. A chemical reaction is when one set of chemical substances turns into another set of chemical substances. In a chemical reaction, we shall have the reactants and the products. Reactants are the substances present at the start of a chemical reaction. Products are the substances the reactants turn into in a given reaction. A chemical reaction is always represented by a chemical equation, and a chemical equation is a written representation of a chemical reaction. And there are two forms of chemical equations. We have word equation and a symbol equation. In a word equation, both the reactants and the products are represented by their names written in words, whereas in a symbol equation, both the reactants and the products are represented by their chemical formulas. We have different forms of different types of chemical reaction that helps us to identify or to predict the products of a given reaction. The first one is synthesis, decomposition, single replacement, and double replacement, as well as combustion. If you understand all these different forms of chemical reaction, you will be able to predict the products of a given chemical reaction. Let's start by looking at the first form of chemical reaction, and that is synthesis. Synthesis, this is a reaction in which two or more substances react to form a single substance. We shall have two or more substances combining together to give us a single substance. For example, the general format, if I have A, I combine it with B, I'm going to get a single compound AB, and I have represented this by an example. If you have sodium metal reacting with chlorine gas, it's going to give us chlorine sodium chloride. Is going to give us sodium chloride. And how do we balance this equation? We make sure that the number of atoms of the reactants is the same as the number of all the atoms on the product side. Then we look at different examples of synthesis reaction. If you have hydrogen reacting with oxygen, you're going to have water. If you have magnesium reacting with nitrogen, you're going to form magnesium nitride. If you react oxygen, zinc metal with oxygen gas, you're going to have zinc oxide. And if you have calcium oxide, you react it with calcium carbon dioxide, you're going to form calcium carbonate. Another form of a chemical reaction is decomposition. Decomposition is almost the opposite of synthesis, because now for a decomposition is a reaction in which a compound breaks down into two or more simpler substances, and we have given a general equation. AB will break down to give us A plus B. Examples: in electrolysis of water, water will break down into two different molecules, hydrogen and oxygen. When carbonates are heated, for example, cement factories use a giant kiln oven to heat a mixture of clay and limestone. The heat causes the carbonate in the limestone to decompose into lime, and lime is calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So whenever carbonates are heated, they produce metal oxides, and carbon dioxide gas is given out. This gas turns lime water milky. So whenever you heat a carbonate, you're going to get a metal oxide and carbon dioxide gas. So an example: calcium oxide breaks down into calcium carbonate breaks down into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide gas. Magnesium carbonate as well also breaks down into magnesium oxide and carbon dioxide gas. Another example of the decomposition reaction is the hydroxides. Hydroxides, whenever they are heated, water is evaporated and a metal oxide is given. So here we have calcium hydroxide. When it is heated, we shall get calcium oxide and water is evaporated. Then aluminium hydroxide, we shall have aluminium oxide and water as the product. So whenever we have a single compound breaking down into two or more simpler substances, we shall call that a decomposition. We shall call that a decomposition reaction. If you look at these equations and the one for synthesis, you are going to realize that the opposite of synthesis is the or the reverse of synthesis is the decomposition. The products of whenever the product of synthesis breaks down into the other simpler substance, we shall call that a decomposition.